Good evening. I'm Mary Del Plato, and this is Chatting with Cynthia. Hi, Cynthia.
Hi.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come tonight and do a little interview with our class. So, Doctors didn't give us too much information, basically just your name and who you work for. But can you tell us what exactly do you do?
Currently, I work for the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. It's a military organization, part of the Department of the Army, and we are the engineers and construction organization for the federal government. And I work in government affairs for that organization. So I work with political leaders.
Okay, so what does your job entail? Do you write emails all day? Do you write proposals? Like, what does a day for you look like?
Today was a heavy meeting day, but it's a day of dealing with issues and concerns that may come up from political leaders, from federal all the way to county, state, local leaders. It involves, I would call it issue management. So we have a number of projects because we work for 6 states. So we have projects in Maryland, DC, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and New York. So we may get a call from anyone in those states asking about asking about a project, and they're asking for a number of reasons. We're in the federal funding cycle, so we are talking about appropriations. We talk about authorization, which is what gives us the right to do work for different states and for different organizations. So the day can be very interesting. It was a meeting talking about some of our mega projects. They're projects that are over $1 million. We talked about federal projects. We're building on Fort Meade. We're building on Fort Belvoir. We're building on a number of Army installations around the area.
So you said that you work in the Department of the Military, but you are a civilian.
I'm a civilian.
How is that, being a civilian in a military-based operation? Do you feel a divide between your military counterparts? Do you not?
When you work for the military, you begin to understand their traditions and their customs. There are a number of things that they do, from change of command, which is when you get a new senior leader in, that's either a colonel or a general, but mainly for people who value what you do, and they appreciate your skill set and they appreciate what you bring to the table. So it's a very, I like the working environment. You're working with people who've been all around the world. You're working with people who have had experiences that you may not have had. In this day and age, most of the people that you work with in the military, they've been in combat in Iraq and Afghanistan. So they bring a whole new flavor to the work environment.
So, did you always envision yourself working in the Department of Corps of Engineering, or?
No. When I graduated, I was going to work in television production. Liked working behind the scenes, had worked in news, loved working in a newsroom. Seeing a lot of things as an intern in television, so I was broadcast all the way. Started looking for a job, said, don't know where I'm gonna have to move because Baltimore's in the top 20 markets, so you never start here. You always go somewhere else and come back. But the job market didn't offer a lot. So a friend of mine, she worked for the federal government. She saw a job announcement and she said, check this out, maybe you're interested. And I did, and I got hired. Within a year, I kind of found my niche. It was working with people who were in and around the installation, community organizations, chambers of commerce, things like that. And I decided I'll do this for about 5 years, and then I'll go into private industry, go back into broadcasting, because there is broadcasting in the military. There are TV stations and radio stations. So I was like, I'll go back into that. This is just a stepping stone. And I've been doing this for 20 years.
Okay, so those 5 years really lasted a long time.
They lasted a long time. But when you like what you do and you're passionate about what you do, you'll stick with it.
I mean, and that's great that you found something that you were so passionate about and that you like to do, especially since it's not where you thought you would be at all. So you work for the Corps of Engineering, and I'm just curious that with everything going on with the new STEM programs and really encouraging younger girls to go into those science and engineering fields, have you noticed a difference in the gender ratios in the Corps of Engineering since those programs have been put in place?
Well, I've only worked for the Corps for 12, as well as they do some work on college campuses also, still encouraging people to become involved in STEM. Female engineers, a lot of our female engineers graduated from a school not far from here, Baltimore Polytechnic Institute, and then they went to the universities, a number of local universities with strong engineering programs, and then they came to us. So it's a diverse organization. They do architecture, engineering, construction. There's even, pieces of it that we have interior designers. So we have folks that do a lot of different things.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of different fields and personalities, I'm sure, all kind of thrown in there together. Now, before we started the interview, Doc Chris mentioned, asked some of the people in the class about if they were from New Jersey and New York and were affected by Hurricane Sandy. How do you play into all of that?
Hurricane Sandy was a big project for the Corps of Engineers all over. Corps of Engineers is a worldwide organization. Our commander actually went to New York to help with what they call dewatering. So the tunnels in New York were flooded. So the Corps of Engineers has folks who come in and they know how to pump the water out of those tunnels so that the subway could start running again and people could get back on track. As far as the Jersey Shore, we have responsibility for rebuilding the shore. And folks who had houses that were pretty much demolished by the storm, for lack of a better way to put it, we go in and we work with them and FEMA, create a partnership to help get people back on track. So it may be that FEMA comes in and the person says, I'm not gonna go through this again, I don't wanna live here. FEMA will come in, they'll buy out the property, and then they'll move, then the family will move somewhere else. But we also have a skill set where you can have your home flood, they call it flood proofing. So now some houses that probably stayed in that location are now sitting up higher so that they are not subject to flooding if we have a similar storm.
Yeah, I live in New Jersey, so I've noticed
Right.
that
Houses built up.
everything's much higher
Yes.
now.
That's construction work to hopefully, they call it mitigating against that happening again. So.
That's really interesting. Thank you so much for coming with us.
You're welcome.
I just want to thank the audience so much for watching our program here tonight. Thank you to Cynthia Lyles Quinn for being willing to do an interview with our class. Join us next week at Chatting With to hear our interview with Crystal Elbass.